So first it was the AAA industry, obviously, saying that Silksong is rockstar tier nonsense, that it's Baldur's Gate 3 level. And by the way, about Baldur's Gate 3, remember they said that no one is ever gonna achieve this level of polish, integrity, and love for their own product again. And then comes Silksong and obviously proves them wrong. Then it was the, well, second usual suspects, the game journalists, saying Silksong is bad, Silksong is not actually that good. Then it was the indie developers that got mad at Silksong for pricing itself only at $20 because of course, indie developers also need to be mad. Typically, it was the woke loser indie developers that are making absolute masterpieces like South of Midnight, Dustborn, and Concord. Well, Concord technically was almost 600 million, so kind of hard to call it an indie, but you know, it's the same level of absolute garbage tier dumpster fires. Man, Silksong is getting all of the hate. And now the most recent one is, oh, it's too hard. Make it easier. I want to play it, but it's too hard. Man, why is it so hard to just appreciate a good made game? Why is it so hard for some people to just accept that quality exists and that they are trash at their job and they can't compete against quality? It's really so tedious.
Hollow Knight Silksong is a juggernaut and very much so represents what a lot of the gaming audience wants to see from these development studios. No, I don't mean 2D platforming Metroidvania. What I'm referring to is the fact that it respects its gaming audience, not necessarily just in pricing, but also the fact of what they've created here. You know, obviously the immediate reactions we're seeing to Silksong is that, oh my god, I can't believe how hard it is, but also the level of detail and the improvements that have been made. You just don't get this
people acting like this isn't literal the 2D side scroller Aladdin game of hardness. Okay, it was a Sega game from when I was a kid. I look at this crumbling block and I'm instantaneously, that is my 2D Aladdin side scroller game without any save points, so good luck beating it.
type of experience if, say, Electronic Arts was the publisher, because we all know what would have happened. Team Cherry would have turned into a 50 to 100 developer studio. This experience would have been released maybe 5 or so years ago, and this would have been a different type of beast. And Team Cherry, what they're enjoying right now is a
It would be bad, he's just saying. That's it. It would be bad. Everyone knows that something like Hollow Knight in general is just dead under something like EA, Activision, or any of the other AAA slop companies, okay?
creative muscle that a lot of this industry doesn't get to have. We don't see that in the AAA games industry. And it's one of those things that we used to see, maybe in the early 2000s when this gaming industry was still in its infancy. That's why when I see articles like this, it makes me happy of the future, because I do think these outliers, which is what some people are referring to games like Silksong as, and even Expedition 33, they represent the future in many different regards. Team Cherry hopes Silksong could be anyone's first Hollow Knight game, and one reason it took 7 years is they were comfortable not knowing what's going to happen. The really interesting things are the things you sort of discover along the way. And those really interesting things don't happen if Team Cherry expands or, totally alters themselves as a studio. They could have done all of that to make sure that this experience was out years ago, but they didn't do that. They stuck to the development team that they are. And we've seen other smaller indie darlings this last year. I brought it up a second ago, Expedition 33, promising that they're going to continue that into the future. They don't want to massively expand and
oh, that's good. I mean, expansion just will kill the studio, keep everything. It's just going to be a pay down for the owner, and that's it.
ruin what they are and what worked. But very much so, Hollow Knight Silksong is enjoying one of the biggest launches ever for an indie title. It peaked at almost 600,000 players just the other day. Right now, even recording late at night, 300,000 players. This has been an absolute massive success for Team Cherry, and they're going to continue to do what they're doing for many years to come. But unfortunately, the takes about Silksong and Team Cherry have only continued, and it very much mirrors what happened a couple of years ago with Baldur's Gate 3, in which we saw a number of developers calling it an anomaly, saying it was Rockstar level nonsense for scope, when in reality, Baldur's Gate 3 specifically was.
Man, that is such a self-report when you're a developer and you're saying, "Oh, look at this good game. I can't make it. Don't make me make this. I'm too stupid to make this." Man, that was a massive self-report when Baldur's Gate 3 came out. And now it's effectively happening again. And this time it's a 2D platformer. It's a 2D platformer, my dude. Baldur's Gate 3 at least was 3D. I mean, that adds a level of complexity. But now they're attacking for the same reason Silksong, and it's just, wow. Can you not get any lower? Can you not make me want to hate you every single day?
Just setting an old standard, something that this AAA games industry used to represent, but unfortunately, we're having to look to these AA and indie studios to get what this industry used to be known for. Now, I bring up that situation because it mirrors exactly what has been happening with Silksong this last week. In my last video, we talked extensively about how a lot of indie developers have been discussing Silksong in terms of how it priced itself and also its release timing, and also the fact that a lot of those developers were very unhappy with how Team Cherry approached all of.
Oh yeah, dude. So many people of indies were like, "Oh, why didn't you tell us when you were gonna release your game? You hurt us." Bro, what do you want them to pay your bills next? Like, they don't have to tell you when their thing is gonna be released. Also, it's a 2D side scroller. I mentioned that a lot, I know, but it matters. Chances are your indie game is not a 2D platformer, so you're fine. The overlap doesn't matter that much for you. Now, granted, it does suck out the oxygen for discussion about other things, but, like, come on. Indie developers are trying to name and shame Silksong and Team Cherry for not telling everyone when they're gonna release their product because they magically owe it to these people for some reason. Like, get out.
Of this. Now, unfortunately, the hot take surrounding Silksong and what it represents has not slowed down. And we've actually heard from a number of voices in the AAA games industry which have shut down the possibility of this game representing anything. They think it is an outlier, and there's really no lessons to be learned, and it really is kind of insane in my opinion, and we're going to be going over that. Now, first off, we've seen a number of mainstream, outlets such as IGN running articles like this. Indie developers are worried Silksong's $20 price tag will make it harder to price their games, and again, just so many voices chiming in. Last video, we went over RJ of D-Cell Games saying Silksong honestly should cost $40, and I'm not even joking. And then, obviously, since then, a number of other developers in the indie space have agreed with it, saying it's pretty much on point. Another developer saying, I agree with this post, but you can also look at this from a slightly different angle. Look at how cheap games could be if developers weren't getting terrible deals from storefronts publishers and weren't fighting for their lives to pay bills. And look, the takes about the $20 price.
No, it would be just a lot easier to be a game dev if you didn't make slop. That's it. I mean, again, there's so much dumb slop. There's so much rogue games. Like, we never actually look at this, but again, the indie development title that was supposed to be a simulator of crossing the American border, and not out of America, obviously. Dude, that's insane. Okay, we don't talk enough about these absolute slop fiestas.
Tag being too cheap has only continued. We've even seen content creators saying it should have been 30 or 40, but really the takes about Silksong have gone haywire in a different direction than I just didn't expect. Like, we have people saying the narrative that the game developers who work on Call of Duty and other AAA don't love their craft and want to make a great game compared to the love Team Cherry have is a stupid narrative. Over 9,000 people are credited for Black Ops 6, and it's dumb to say they don't love it or want to make a great game. You don't.
They don't. They don't. They're just getting a paycheck. These people, a lot of people in these studios, the reason why they are attacking Silksong and any other indie success, or any other success in general, I guess, unless it's a AAA one, it's because they don't care. They just want to get their paycheck. And whenever something outside of the AAA industry makes them look bad, well, makes them look incompetent, should probably be more apt. They get really mad. They get really defensive because, well, I mean, they're supposed to be the big cool guys who make all the cool stuff, and here's some indie developer just absolutely destroying them. Yeah, I would also feel not good about myself if I was that low on the totem pole.
See the problem with 9,000 people working on one game and how there probably is not a cohesive vision with that.
Hey, 12,000 people worked at Diablo 4.
And how, you know, that franchise you're talking about has stagnated drastically in terms of its quality and, you know, using different ideas. They just recycle and rinse and repeat. That is what Call of Duty is known for, and that's really what a lot of us are fighting, that we just keep on seeing from this AAA games industry. And here we have a developer of Giant Squid saying what execs are going to take away from Silksong is more layoffs, smaller teams, make Metroidvanias. What they should take away instead, devs worked on a game they're passionate about with no interference from execs and the time they need to get it done without shareholder pressure. And I actually think that is...
God, again, I hate these oversimplified narratives, these absolutely out of touch idiocy things about how big companies work. Okay, listen. Bobby Kotick, when he was in charge of World of Warcraft, every Blizzard IP, he fucking didn't know what an inventory was. He didn't know what a talent point system is. He had no idea what a boss fight is. He had no idea what World of Warcraft even looks like. He didn't make the choices that made the game shit. He didn't look at the game and say, oh yes, make this worse. He had no idea what any of that garbage is. He fundamentally didn't give a shit. He just expanded the way that they could monetize things in ways that were in ways that he believed were right, and he did that. You know who did make the game bad? The developers. Yes, the developers. They made the game bad. Bobby Kotick didn't fucking give a shit about the raid, and whenever any bad raid came out, it wasn't Bobby's fault. It was the developers' fault. The executives don't actually look at everything a company that large does. Any AAA company's executive is not overlooking everything they do. Even at Bethesda, where Todd Howard technically signs off on everything, it's not like even Todd Howard knows everything that's going on. So if you're a developer and you can make a system better by doing a tweak here or there, you can do that, and no one's probably going to be able to stop you. That's it. That's how simple it is. But these developers don't do that because they're talentless hacks.
A mostly good take. But then we get to this one, which is Silksong hastens the death of the critic. And yeah, very much so. Games Journal is very upset that they did not get review codes. Criticism is dying for video games and all arts. And by foregoing review, Silksong helps speed up the process. And no, criticism and opinion pieces about video games is very much alive and well. Maybe not so much so in legacy media, but it is alive and well. But these individuals definitely do not want to realize that. We've also seen this take. Why isn't there a term for indie games that aren't actually indie but definitely aren't AAA? Hollow Knight Silksong is not an indie game. They made like $1 bajillion to work with on the first game, which again, they are an indie studio, 3 individuals. Just because they made a bunch of money doesn't change what they are. We also have this former PlayStation employee saying the Silksong think pieces about how an indie game did XYZ scared AAA publishers, proves indies can be successful on their own terms. Random statistic which has been flattened into a meaningless and misleading headline is going to utterly be unbearable for the next few weeks, isn't it? Also, to clarify, because said flatlining of internet discourse will inevitably lead to So You Hate Waffles, Silksong is great, Team Cherry is great, video games yay, but also...
What? Man, I'm supposed to extrapolate a lot and fill in a lot of blanks here. I don't want to.
There are literally hundreds of games launched every year that cannot do what TC did for a variety of reasons, Team Cherry. This doesn't mean it's a skill issue. Wonderful games like Balatro, Silksong, and Expedition 33 are the exceptions rather than the rule. The entertainment industry is currently set up to drown its young in a sea of never-ending content. Surviving that requires a set of often unrepeatable circumstances that still doesn't guarantee success. Trying to learn from them is like trying to learn from the habits of billionaires in order to get rich. You can't. Although I do think that there is a model there, especially for the AAA games industry to follow. And it really is to pivot away from risk adversity and also respecting your audience. We have seen this movement, especially from a lot of these AAA publishers. This is something that an EA developer admitted earlier this year, that execs told them explicitly that they do not respect their core audience. They're trying to find that broadening
You know who expects his core audience? Me. So subscribe, like, and comment down below how much you hate the AAA losers, because they are the losers.
modern general audience, and that is something that is ruining so many of these franchises, and that's something that you cannot find in the data. And these are one of those lessons that I do think games like Silksong, Expedition 33, Baldur's Gate 3 represents. Next, we have an EA artist saying it is now 0 days since AAA devs hate indie success discourse has occurred again. Some of you must think AAA devs assemble board meeting style to shriek about how the cursed indie devs have thwarted us yet again, when in truth, I'm barely making it through today so I can play Silksong later. And I do think a lot of the criticism of the AAA games industry is more so directed at publishers rather than developers. And I do think that is something that's often missing from these takes, or I guess it's one of those things that should be obvious, but I guess it's not. But very much so, there is one space, one website in which apparently there's a lot of takes about Silksong happening. And yes, it is LinkedIn. I didn't know they had a big post section.
LinkedIn? Wow.
But they very much do so. And we have seen think pieces like this coming from an EA publisher. Silksong is finally coming, so why do I just want to move on? And a basic summarization of this little article coming from an ex-EA employee is this: I'm also ready for the chapter of the industry zeitgeist to be over. Indie games shouldn't live in the shadow of a single messiah. There are too many other voices, visions, and risks worth celebrating. I think this is an AI article, but
that's an AI summarization, I would assume, not an article, but still sounds stupid as expected.
Much so, this individual's opinion is that Silksong has been looming over the indie space, and it's time for that not to be the case. Like Grand Theft Auto 6 looms over the AAA games industry, I guess. But these takes, these I believe AI generated articles and stuff, opinion pieces, analysis, has been something going widespread on LinkedIn. Like, this individual is also a former employee, I believe, of Tencent, Activision Blizzard, EA, and a couple of other companies.
God damn, he's like speedrunning all of the bad companies. Tencent, Blizzard, EA. What's next? BioWare? Ubisoft?
Silksong shows that one of the most anticipated indie releases of the decade is still $20. Team Cherry can charge $20 for Silksong even after 8 years of development because they are in a position few indie studios ever reach. Hollow Knight sold millions, giving them financial security and the freedom to take their time without outside pressure. They run a lean operation with just a handful of developers, so their costs are a fraction of what most studios face. By keeping it at $20, Team Cherry reinforces that image of being player first, ensuring massive volume across every platform, and sets themselves apart from other titles selling at a higher figure. It feels like a moment where the industry's tensions, the AAA games industry's tensions, are being exposed, because in the end, the player just sees $20 for hundreds of hours of playtime as a deal too good to be mad about.
Yeah, I said this. The fact that it's $20 probably is contributing to like 50% of its sales. I have no way to prove that, but I think it's a big deal, because you see something that people are so excited about, something that comes out, and people are ecstatic about it, and then you have your typical idiots shouting at the skies, being angry, no, this is bad, you don't understand. And it's $20? Man, that's a hard pass. No, that's a hard thing to not to pass, you know what I'm saying? It's really hard to say no to that. $20 for something that makes the legacy media this mad, AAA slop this mad, Activision Blizzard saying, oh no, you can't expect quality. If it was 40, I wonder what the sales would look like. I don't think they would be as high. And if it was 50 or 60, this Well, maybe it would sell 200k copies. No, the 200k player peak, I should say, not copies. It's hard to tell.
And I generally don't know if this individual actually wrote it, but this is some of the analysis that has been going viral on LinkedIn, which I guess has been leading to a lot of game developers in the AAA games industry being very upset about these opinion pieces. Like, this is one opinion coming from a former developer of Carbine Studios and 38 Games. $20 is a ridiculous price. However, I think people are overstating the praise of their generosity. I think it's a very calculated decision. They know people are lined up to buy it in the millions, so they have no issue making their costs back, and it buys a good amount of goodwill from the user base. I don't think this is a pattern most studios can follow. Hollow Knight was one of the most beloved titles of the last 10 years, hailed by many as a perfect game. That's the reason why they can do so confidently, release this game at a lower price point without giving away review codes. Frankly, I expected closer to 30 or even more. I'm sure they'd have people buying it still at 40 or higher. And this sentiment is something that we're going to feel from a lot of these LinkedIn remarks.
Well, of course, LinkedIn is the place where all the cream of the crop, the cream that floats to the top through nepotism in a lot of cases. People who don't deserve the position that they currently work in, most likely. People who actually have no talent. That's where that's the people who go to LinkedIn. It's definitely a fun place. Let me tell you that. And, well, the AAA gaming industry in general is really mad about this because they're really happy about GTA trying to push $100 price tag, Nintendo upping their price to 80 or 90 a pop. And now Silksong comes out and says, no, how about 20? 20 seems fine. This is what I have been saying, by the way. I have a feeling a lot of people actually do think like I when it comes to pricing of games. If a AAA game is above $30, I don't think it's fucking worth it. It's probably not worth it. It's bad. It's just an inflated price for no reason. Like, I'm gonna buy GTA when it comes out. Got a new PC. Can run GTA 6 probably. If not, I'll be seriously amazed. But in any case, GTA is going to be $100 probably, and all of the industry is absolutely ecstatic about it because they want this push for higher prices for games, which is fucking stupid, obviously. So something like Silksong is just an existential threat, effectively, for them because it proves that, well, everything that we already knew, that they're full of shit.
Don't get the snarky attitude with how Team Cherry has approached this game's development. And there is lessons to be learned from Silksong's development. That is quite clear with the financial and creative flexibility that those developers have enjoyed over the years, and something that the AAA space especially does not get to enjoy. But we've also seen, this is a take that we talked about last video, this specific post right here. I talked about how this was inspiration for the indie space or any developer trying to make it. And it was pointing out that, you know, you had a lot of negative comments coming from this r/gaming subreddit, many people doubting that a Metroidvania was going to make it. It was just going to be another game, people would ignore it. But unfortunately, we have seen a lot of people twist this in a negative way of the game development circles. Like, it starts with this post specifically. This isn't a negative comment. This is coming from the CEO of HoloLive, and this was actually praise about this comment. And he was...
Oh god, HoloLive? Are you kidding me? Dude, no one cares about your shitty opinion.
Specifically saying Silksong is finally out and there is a lesson here for all of us to learn. If you have a dream or a vision, don't give up because others tell you to. Accept all feedback but keep working on. Whether it's a game, a company, or any kind of content, any dream worth having is a dream worth fighting for. For us at Cover, we might be in our Hollow Knight era compared to our beginnings, but look forward to our Silksong 1. And again, they highlighted this specific r/gaming subreddit comment and also the negative comments that were attributed to this. But again, this pissed off a number of game developers. Specifically, we had this one. As a former Techland marketing manager, he actually had a number of AAA developers liking this post of Ubisoft, Xbox, Techland, NetEase, Bethesda, Konami, and so on and so forth. He said, there's a post going around, and it's the one I just showed a second ago, in LinkedIn, in which people or someone cherry-picked negative comments from the original Hollow Knight Reddit post to make it look like the community thought the game was crap. There definitely was a lot of people that did say that. Obviously, it wasn't the majority, but he calls it pure clickbait. The original post is full of positive comments, with the top comments being really favorable. And now for the onslaught of LinkedIn and analysts posting their thoughts on why the game was successful. Cannot wait for these golden nuggets of wisdom. And
God, again, being an analyst for something like the games industry is such bullshit. Oh, we have to analyze why Silksong was good, but we need to do it through the lens of it. We're gonna get jobs afterwards. That's an already absolute catastrophe just waiting to be happen, to be honest. Anyway, that was Legacy Kill HD. You get the point. Every one of the typical suspects very mad that Silksong exists and how well it's doing. Bye!